Once upon a crime, far, far away, was a dark, mysterious place believed to have been built upon a graveyard. The notorious Stonebridge estate, which consisted of over 15 high-rise blocks that towered over the skies of northwest London, was a predominantly Afro-Caribbean population from the influx of the Windrush many years ago. Stonebridge was riddled with poverty, notorious for its underground world of murders, drugs, guns and yardie gangs, where crack fiends took refuge on the pissy stairways and hallways of abandoned blocks. Stonebridge was swamped with murders, and unsolved gun crime went hidden in the shadows of each block. Police struggled to break down the wall of silence in this breeding ground for gangs and violence. Stonebridge was truly a concrete jungle, where only the strong survive.
Basically, Are You Alone was just about one of my OGs that he kind of raised, man. He was actually super on stuff, a very well known person on the road as well. And like, obviously we used to kick it with him hard, you get what I'm saying? And then obviously some shit went down, and like he just told on the whole hood. Like, he wrote a 4,000 page statement. He was like one of the first black on black Supergrasses ever. It was all established on the newspapers and all of that kind of stuff. And obviously, you know, that's where that song came from.
This is the tale of Britain's first black on black Supergrass, aka Spyda, a former gang member from Harlesden, the Stonebridge Park estate located in the Northwest 10 postcode. Darren Matherin, who's from the notorious Stonebridge Park estate, located in the Harlesden district in northwest London, was a part of the infamous TOS gang, which is an acronym for the Thugs of Stonebridge. Darren went by the street name Spyda, due to how vicious he was in the streets. It was alleged he was one of the main shooters for his gang, and would instruct his younger members to carry out shootings for him. He was known for having shootouts in nightclubs and drug dealing alongside his fellow gang members. It was documented that after he left secondary school, he worked for his dad, who was a painter and decorator. However, he didn't want to live the 9-to-5 life. Instead, he was fixated on making fast money, which is what led him to partake in criminal activity the older he got. Throughout this video, I'll be going into different gang wars to help add further context to his story, and why he became so infamous during the mid-2000s. Now, speaking of the Stonebridge Park estate, during the Windrush era, starting from the late 1940s and ending in the 1960s, a lot of Caribbean immigrants were invited to come over in the hope for a better life. They helped rebuild London, England after the World War. The high-rise towers were created during that era, boxing hundreds of people on top of one another. However, despite the towers providing people with a roof over their heads, it was a failure by the government. The high-rises were 14 to 18 feet tall, and at times the elevators wouldn't work and water, heating and the electricity would sometimes be cut off. Crime would flourish within the estate, and at one point was considered a concrete jungle, due to the amount of criminal activity being present. Now, despite things being bad, there was still a strong community spirit within the estate. Locals knew each other and would unite to defend themselves against rival racist skinheads during the 1980s. After the racial tensions had simmered down later on that decade, Caribbean gangsters known as the Yardies would start to make their way into Britain in order to distribute drugs. The residents of Stonebridge fought tooth and nail to provide their community with activities and resources for the kids, and to decrease the level of racism from outsiders. At one point, the Stonebridge Park estate was considered its own place, and not a part of Harlesden, but to the estate's scope and size. But years later, it officially became a part of Harlesden, therefore making the district bigger. Harlesden had a heavy Jamaican influence due to the Caribbean immigrants coming over, to the point where non-Caribbeans would claim to be from Jamaica as a means to fit in with the crowd. There was a strong reggae culture in terms of music, sound, fashion, food, lingo, and many more that overtook the borough of Brent. A lot of positivity came from the estate, but unfortunately, years later, a lot of negative things would overshadow of positives.
That could be us. It could be me, you and Beck. and guide them to retreat. Northwest 10 we are stepping. It's our hands and we just can't let it. Well, Northwest 10 we are make a move, and we not have not a thing to go broke. Northwest 10 we are stepping. It's our hands and we just can't let it. Well, Northwest 10 we are make a move, and we not have not a thing to go broke.
Listen, we tell you.
During the mid to late 1980s, Caribbean gangsters known as the Yardies would come to Britain to distribute their drug dealing. They came with their gangland, shower, posse-style gun tactics, which saw a rise in crime and murders. Stonebridge consisted of both Caribbean and Irish gangsters roaming the estate. The first gang to emerge from the Stonebridge Park estate was known as the Panthers. During the 1990s, the crack epidemic came, which made the estate even worse due to having a plethora of high-rises. There wasn't enough policing, which made things easier for gangsters across the City of London to take refuge, which is what occurred. Both Yardies and British gangsters would be roaming the estate armed with firearms, while the residents would force themselves to get along with it. Even the police were too scared to go inside the estate, especially at night time. During the 1990s, the Yardies gangsters helped spike the London crime rate with their brutal gangland shower posse criminal tactics, with the overusage of guns. The younger generations emerging during the 90s would imitate Yardie gangsters within the estate, causing them to be just as dangerous if not worse, which is exactly what had transpired during the late 90s to early 2000s. When London's murder rate was in the 2000s, British-born gangsters would often refer to themselves as Yardies as a means of intimidation. Gangs would emerge during this decade, those being known as the bus of head crew, and then followed by the suspects. These gangs were known for their serious gunplay in the estate. One group would be infamous during the 90s, and that was the kick-off head crew that were just as deadly as any other gang. If you violate one of them, they'll respond back in blood. During the late 90s, the younger generation would emerge and embrace the suspect's name, but adding the word gang, calling themselves the Suspect Gang, led by gang leader Damien William aka Bora Banton. Now, during the 2000s, a lot of turmoil would begin to surface in the streets of northwest London due to how many different gangs emerged that had discrepancies with one another. One incident would be the catalyst for many tit-for-tats to come within the next couple of decades. I'm talking about the Stonebridge vs Church Road gang war. Now, despite individuals from both sides having tensions with one another since the 80s and 90s, it was mainly due to petty fights amongst certain individuals. But in 2001, everything changed for the worse. TOS gang members residing in the Stonebridge Park estate started to have a falling out with some individuals from the nearby Church End estate, as locals call it Church Road. This was because of money issues. Due to this falling out, certain TOS members, such as an individual known as Shorty, would begin terrorising locals with the nearby estate. One day he shot a local known as Buddha in the stomach. Shorty was arrested for this attempted murder, but due to insufficient evidence, he was found not guilty. Within the next few months, the following year in 2002, he saw a local known as Cash, who's also a dancehall artist. Shorty proceeded to rob him for both drugs and money. After a quick tussle, Shorty immediately opened fire, shooting Cash in his face and robbing him. Cash almost died from his injuries, but miraculously made a steady recovery. Locals from Church Road would also get robbed while attending house parties in Stonebridge by TOS members. It was these constant acts of violations that would lead to one of the most infamous shootings in London. Later on that year, people from northwest London were in attendance inside the Tudor Rose nightclub. Members from TOS, including Spyda, were in attendance alongside locals from Church Road. The crowd was divided due to the recent act of violence. Friends of Cash informed him that Shorty was in attendance, so he and his best friend known as Zeno, who's British rapper Nine's older brother, came in oversized clothes armed with guns looking for Shorty. After entering, Cash quickly spotted him on stage, ran up the stairs, and opened fire, shooting Shorty in the back of his head. His body fell to the floor with his gun falling out of his waist. Zeno opened fire, hitting a few people in the crowd, as all of them scattered to one side of the function. One of the bullets ricocheted off the wall and accidentally hit another TOS gang member in the process known as Endsman. He subsequently died on the scene due to his injuries, and Shorty died later on in hospital. After the double homicide, locals from Church Road formed a gang along with the nearby Roundwood estate and Bruce Road to war against TOS. Still, to this day there have been back and forth shootings, stabbings and murders coming from both sides, with the younger generations inheriting the gang war to this day. Fast forward to 2004, One day, a TOS gang member with the street name Playboy saw his friend Romain White, who had crashed his motorbike and was quickly taken to hospital. Both lived close to each other. Rumours circulated that Playboy had something to do with the involvement of Romain's flat being burgled into by gunmen. People began to spread rumours that he was either one of gunmen or led the gang into the flat. 3 women were present during the robbery: Romain's girlfriend Sabrina Edwards and his sister Malika. All 3 jumped out of the first-floor window, and in the process 2 of them broke their legs. They informed gang leader Bora Banton about the incident. At first, he and other members of TOS didn't want to believe it. But it was alleged soon after he had given the green light to have Playboy executed. The next day, 2 TOS gang members located Playboy standing outside his home while on the phone to his girlfriend. They shot him multiple times at point-blank range. Playboy died on the scene. Spyda saw Playboy's body on the floor alongside members of the public. He made his way to Bora's house. Gavin Grant, who went by the street name Gav and was a professional footballer, was seen drenched in water, washing off the gunpowder, asking him, "Is he dead?" Spyda responded with, "I think so." Despite successfully killing their former friend, consequences would soon arise. People within the community knew who did the murder. Soon after the execution, letters began to slide through all the gang members' letterboxes who were involved in the death of Playboy, which angered a lot of them. It was alleged that Playboy's mum had been the one responsible and quickly moved out of the estate. Since the death of Playboy from 2004 to early 2005 sparked over 30-plus shootings that were recorded by the Metropolitan Police. A few times it was reported that Bora was shot at by Playboy's friends, mainly from the TFL gang. The death of Playboy sparked a heatwave of extreme violence throughout of Borough of Brent, which led to the Stonebridge in-house. Now here's where things get interesting. The Stonebridge in-house war consisted of gangs from different parts of the northwest area, and not just former friends from the estate. The gangs that were involved were KG, Kensal Green, and TFL Kingsbury. TOS gang members created their first ever music video that was dedicated to Playboy. In the end, they said RIP as a remembrance. Stonebridge has always been a divided place, going a decade back, some say during the 80s, some say during the 90s. But it wasn't a case where all of the south side and north side didn't get along. It would only be between a few individuals residing in different parts of the estate. That was the occasion with this in-house beef.
Yo, mind your step at northwest, so your end is nigh. It's where niggas is known to take shots and then survive. Yeah, it's hard trying to keep some of my friends alive. With Stonebridge, Harlesden, Church Road, Kensal Rise, we all beefing. I ain't gonna pretend it's nice, we all squeezing. They're giving out fate to life, the ends is grimy. Dirtied my white Nikes, walking the streets in bright lights. Stalking my P's, then fade to darkness. Walking with G's whose face is heartless. We're breaking major margins far from the days when we would ache from starving. They're hating on Harlesden, right? In high doses, they don't want to know this, especially our Stonebridge kids. They're hating on the clique, cause everything we hold is big. Yeah, these niggas say they know where we live, but they never come. Why? Cause they'll never leave. Why? Cause they'll never squeeze.
One day, as Bora got into his car, he was immediately ambushed by 2 rival gang members. They shot his car both front and back dozens of times and made their getaway. This angered many TOS members, so later on that same day, 4 of them were armed with guns. Jamal Moore, aka DJ Footage, was outside with his girlfriend. Despite not being a gang member, they turned their attention to Footage, due to his affiliation. They sprayed and peppered his car and riddled him with multiple bullets. He rolled down a hill and quickly called the police. He named one of the killers and said it was Rufus while trying to speak over the phone. He died shortly after, with his girlfriend screaming in horror. After the murder, Spyda was instructed by members of his gang to burn the car. He drove the vehicle to East London, where he set it on fire, but in the process, he accidentally burnt his legs. He then called a taxi and was driven to the hospital. His legs were burnt so badly that during the drive, he poked them out to cool them down. Burning the car would be very crucial to his downfall, because when the car exploded, his hat was caught on fire and was left at the scene of the burning vehicle. Police recovered his hat, which matched his DNA. Because of this, he would later be arrested for his participation in the murder of DJ Footage. Also, he left his mobile phone switched on, which allowed police to place him at the scene of the crime through cell site analysis, but he was only the getaway driver. TOS gang member Rufus would go on to be arrested due to cell site analysis also, and after a 2-year investigation, he and other gang members would be found guilty of the murder of DJ Footage. TFL would create an independent music label and title it Footage Records in honour of his memory.
I met TFL, but Harsden is my zone. My dad is from KG, so that's where I growed. I never lived in Church Road, I used to trap in Church Road. Rest in peace, Footage and Brand, that blocked Church Road. Rest in peace, Playboy and Pinky, that died by snakes. Rest in peace, Bud, Blood, I really miss Johnny. Hypo and View, trust me, I miss Connors, but fuck the bitch that snitch. The little lying little bitch, fuck Bungles too. He told her what to do, and I'm still mad, still pissed off, still vexed, and I'm still rolling around with a strap or a shank.
Gav would be one of the few gang members cleared of murder and would go on to play for Millwall. Spyda would be given 16 years in prison for conspiracy to murder. Members of TOS would start to put out more music consistently. Rapper Squinny did a song dedicated to Spyda.
Yeah, suspects. This one's for my brothers. Spyda, Sizzler, all my brothers. Yo, this is for my brothers who did crime and got caught, sitting in the cell to the feds, they won't talk. This is for my brothers who still gotta attend court, don't know if they're busting the case, right now they're unsure. This is for my brothers who we lost to the streets, they're with the Holy Father, resting in peace. And this is for my brothers who be hustling hard to take care of the family, put food in the yard. And this is for my brothers who ride for their brothers. If it's beef, then it's beef, then they're laying down brothers. This is for my brothers who trying to make it rapping. Keep on trying, one day it will happen. This is for my brothers who be knocking out pigs. 2 to the jawbone and 4 to the ribs. And this is for my brothers who my suspect brothers. I love my brothers, my niggas, my brothers.
In 2007, Spyda agreed to make a deal with the police to give evidence on his former friends in exchange for his sentence to be reduced. He wrote a 4,000-page statement about all the gangland murders and numerous criminal activities going on within the borough and other places all over the City of London. This made him the first ever black-on-black Supergrass. This is what the police had longed for, a chance to have more of an inside scope on Britain's black criminal underworld. However, this would backfire. Over £250,000 of UK taxpayers was spent protecting Spyda and his family as he went through the confession. Due to the fact that he was an active gang member himself and was found guilty of murder, jurors during the time of the trials didn't believe his confession, which embarrassed Metropolitan Police. Not only that, more money was put into moving him and his family somewhere out of London with a new identity. Spyda also lied, bringing up other people's names that had nothing to do with certain gangland murders. £500,000 of UK taxpayers' money was spent overall. Spyda confessed to the police that both Church Road gang members, Cash and Zeno, were the shooters of the Tudor Rose nightclub double homicide, and that his former friends belonging to the TOS gang killed Playboy due to his alleged involvement in robbing drug money. But once again, due to jurors not accepting his testimony, all members that were accused of murder were acquitted. In 2008, Church Road boss Zeno was gunned down as he sat inside a barbershop in Harlesden by 2 rival gang members belonging to TOS and SK, an acronym for South Kilburn. TOS gang member Richie Boo opened fired, but his gun jammed, which left E1 an SK gang member to finish the job. He shot Zeno in the head in point-blank rage. 3 months later, Cash faced trial alone, and his case collapsed. Both E1 and Richie Boo were later arrested and found guilty of the murder of Zeno. Now, despite no one being found guilty due to Spyda's confession, the fact that he name-dropped certain names gave the police the green light to look into those specific suspects even more. Some TOS members were once again called for a retrial for the murder of their former friend Playboy in 2009. This time the police didn't use Spyda as a witness, because they were able to gather sufficient evidence which led to all members being found guilty. TOS gang leader Bora would be given a life sentence for conspiracy to murder. Gav, the professional football player who was just there when the murder happened, was given an ultimatum. Either he confessed to who the gunmen were, or he too would be found guilty of the murder. Because he chose not to confess, he would be given a life sentence. Bora, Gav and other TOS members were found guilty. Metropolitan Police created a task force known as Operation Bumblebee, where they raided numerous addresses belonging to members of TOS for both firearms and drugs. Shortly after the guilty verdict, TOS and UK rapper K Coke made an entire diss track dedicated to Spyda, which ironically is the same song that skyrocketed his career and was one of the first UK underground rappers to receive 1 million views on YouTube.
You're a snitch cause you're speaking to them. I can't lie, can't even pretend. It's click clack when I see you with skanks. You get nuts if we see you in ends.
Police boy. You heard that? Fuck Spyda. Fuck with man. Fuck Spyda.
It's unclear where Spyda and his family are currently living right now. The fact he was able to dodge a life sentence and in the process take out his former friends and make the police look like fools for trusting him is shocking. Police have changed the way how they handle supergrasses. This is the story of Britain's supergrass.